Hey, y'all. Usually, you would probably hear the introduction right now with the songs and the ads and everything like that. But due to unforeseen circumstances working for the Hopi tribe, you're going to have to hear my voice for at least about 5 seconds. So I can maybe do the introduction right now. Yo! How's that, y'all? All right. Well, on with the show.
You are now listening to the Carl and JMan Save the World podcast. I am your host, the 5-star, 5-diamond chef JMan, and with me is the man with the clan, and apparently he has a plan, Carl.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm doing very well. That's all I can say.
I'm doing very well.
I'm doing very well.
And speaking of doing very well, our last episode, our Clans Before Plans episode is doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And we actually got some messages through our social medias from some of the listeners talking about what our topic was. And so I guess it kind of made people think and, interested in that aspect of what we were talking about. And I actually do want to make a correction of something that I said.
Okay.
Because, it's interesting that when you record a podcast that as you're talking, you think you say something.
Yeah.
And then you go back and then you listen to it and then you realize that either you misspoke. And basically, I misspoke. And when I was talking about our clan run, our traditional clan run, that the cubed stone that we kick, it's actually called a qenge. And in the episode, I said gongya. And gongya is actually the what we refer to as the drumstick for the drum. And so that was a clarification that I wanted to make in regards to our last episode.
All right. Well, glad that you made that correction there, because I think that I'm always right. So just kidding.
And I like to point out too when you're always wrong. So, if I'm going to do that to you, I got to do that for myself. And so you have to do that for myself from the last episode. And, we're going into a new month.
Yeah.
And last month in January, we talked a whole lot about the month of January and what that meant for our Hopi communities. And so, it's February right now. And so it's sacred time, I guess, for us out here on Hopi land. But I think that throughout the year, it's always sacred time.
Oh, yeah.
And so last month in January, we talked a whole lot about Soyalang, which I guess, kind of really majority happens in December going into January. And then January is usually Baumoya.
Yeah.
Per our Hopi calendar. But this month it's Baumoya. And we referenced Baumoya several times in our last episodes. And for those of you that would like to learn more about Baumoya, you can reference H.R. Voth or the white guy. I already forgot his name, the guy that wrote the Hopi book. But as Carl proclaimed that, some of those books are bogus, and, I don't think I would go so far as to say that, but I definitely would go far as to say that, you take it with a grain of salt and truly consult your relatives, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Since since Hopi is an oral traditional clanship based people, a lot of the stuff that we do talk about doesn't end up in books and doesn't end up in like writings, because we don't have an alphabet or we don't have codexes to write about.
Well, according to the Hopi dictionary, there is somewhat of a quote unquote Hopi alphabet out there, but that is the month that we're in. And just a side note, I don't think that we plan to, but just in case that potentially there could be a pause in us releasing episodes once a week due to it being Baumoya. And so, of course, we'll keep you all updated as to whether that may happen or not during this month of February. And there was one thing that I kind of wanted to bring. Well, I guess per Baumoya too. And, I think that pretty soon you're going to get a whole lot of Facebook communications, Instagram communications about being it, quote unquote, Happy Hopi Christmas. And you're going to get a lot of pictures of children's autas and ayas, and little girls is Hopi dolls or tihus. You know that thing, that phrase always annoys the F out of me. Happy Hopi Christmas. It's not Hopi Christmas. It's Powamoya.
You know, I never seen that before. That's actually the first time I've heard about Hopi Christmas.
Really?
Yeah.
It's all over the place. And I just, you know, it's because like Christmas, like we talked about in our Hopi Christmas episode, it's a Christian derived concept turned into a monetized concept. And, you know, that's not the point of it. It's not Christmas. It's Powamoya.
Well, I guess it's just people just kind of relating it to a different type of culture, and then just kind of like, you know, hey, this
seems like Christmas
is like Christmas to us, yeah. So I kind of understand, but
that's just me being a to the point type of guy.
You're that mean taha that says that no, you can't do that kind of stuff.
No, you can't put sugar in povel piki.
You can't put raisins in that thing there.
Somebody should go out on Navajo and say that you can't put raisins in.
It's not called Navajo cake.
But you know, the other thing too that I kind of wanted to bring up with it being February, and we never really get a chance to be topical on this podcast. Usually most of our conversations relate to our culture and relate to our past lives and things like that, our history. But I saw something on social media, and I kind of brought it up to the Rez Famous wife, and I said, you know, I kind of want to talk about this topic, and she advised me, said, no, I don't think you should talk about it. But it's this idea of Black History Month, I guess, because it's February nationally, I guess, is Black History Month. And what I saw on social media was I saw one of our local nonprofit programs making a post saying that we celebrate Black History Month, and it was a picture of a mana, but you know, optically you could tell that she was part Sakamka still.
Yeah.
And then that kind of got me thinking, because then it made me think, because you never see any of our local organizations or at least openly, publicly say that we celebrate Black History Month. And I think that I asked myself, you know, like if I ever ran an organization out here, would I celebrate Black History Month, being a Hopi organization or being an indigenous organization? And I think, you know, for any Hopi that you ask, you know, would you or do you celebrate Black History Month, that the answer probably quickly would be no, you know, because then it's like, well, why would we? Why would we celebrate that? And then I started to think about it even more, because then in this podcast, we've talked about the different music that we like.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about the different types of movies that we like. That throughout my high school years and into college, to my college years, I would say that probably 90% to 95% of the music that I listened to was Black music.
Yeah.
Hip hop, rap, R&B music. And that if there were to be a reggae concert out here on Hopi tomorrow, it would sell out by today.
Yeah, it would.
And there would be a lot of Hopis out there at a reggae concert. And, you know, I know some of my sisters that have gone Black and never came back. And so you do have that component of interracial relationships here on Hopi. But the one thing that I thought about the most was that, and then we mentioned this on this previous episode, and they've made headlines recently, is that one of the football teams changed their name.
Oh, yeah.
Some people believe it to be a racist, stereotypical name.
Yeah.
Me being one of them. And I don't believe that would have ever happened if it wasn't for the Black Lives Matter movement. And so that's kind of another instance to where you have the Black African American community, I guess, having some sort of imprint on who we are as Hopi.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, there's tons of Hopis that listen to a lot of rap growing up. Tons of Hopis listen to a lot of reggae growing up.
Yeah.
And then nationally, being a part of this larger pie of in Indian country. Black Lives Matter movement affecting us on the national level of removing a stereotypical racist mascot on the national level. That maybe we should start thinking about celebrating Black History Month.
I mean, like, you know, since Black history is like, I guess it deals with the racial part of it, and it deals with like the slavery, it deals with the segregation. And when you think about it, is that basically happens to us, us Native Americans, is that we became segregated to the point where we were like cattle, where we had to have our own ID portraying who we are and where we come from. So the U.S. government can say that, oh, you guys still belong here on our own lands. And when you think about the Black History Month and the Black history of this era here, is that segregation just ended 50 years ago. Think about how 50 years ago, my taha is in his 60s, and segregation was still in his time when he was growing up. And he said that, yeah, a lot of that stuff during the 60s and the 70s, when AIM, like the American Indian movement, was still around, you know, you still had that mindset of like, you know, this is who we are, and this is why we shouldn't be joining the white culture, the white supremacy of everything. And so history itself is in that, you know, in that mindset of like, you know, yeah, we're just like, you know, we're just like the black people. We're just like that, where we're segregated, where we're put into slavery, where we're, you know, where we're killed because of our color. I mean, it's a bad history, but it's history.
And you know, there's that image too out there on social media. It's kind of almost like I don't know. I what the more accurate description of it, kind of almost similar to anime, where it kind of looks real, but you can tell it's cartoonized, digitized or whatever. Yeah. But you know, it's the Indian man. He's naked, and then the black man, he's naked too. But then the black man, like on his body, you can tell that he was severely beaten.
Yeah.
And he's hugging the Native American man, and the black man saying it hurts. And then the Native American man saying in response to him, I know.
Yeah.
Basically what you're saying, that, you know, our experiences are pretty similar in what we've gone through in this country. But that was just something that I wanted to throw out there. So I apologize if I got anybody riled up. But
so do you celebrate Black History Month?
I thought you were going to ask me, have you ever gone black?
Have you ever gone black?
You know, I never really have, I guess, for a majority of my life. But I think that with my experience that I've had over at Arizona State University, because that's probably when I've met the most African American individuals and kind of, you know, learned a little bit about their culture. I think that's kind of when I started to, I guess, acknowledge them a little bit more and acknowledge what, you know, some of their I guess what they've added to my life and what they've added to society. And it's kind of funny because, you know, I think that the state of Arizona, you know, really is still one of those states to where it's primarily brown and white people, that even statistically, you know, that there's a small population of Africans and blacks. And so we all end up being those racist people where you're counting on both your hands how many black people you know. And so, but definitely something I wanted to shout out. So I guess, you know, officially, unofficially, Carl and JMan, do you celebrate Black
History Month? Yeah,
History Month. And
you know, we don't celebrate it just of the month. We celebrate it throughout the years, and you know, it's just not just concentrated in one month, because history should be celebrated, you know, every day, pretty much, and that's who we are.
I thought you were going to say we celebrate it, you know, when our favorite actresses come on stage, Zendaya. Or
I Black History. I watch Poetic Justice.
Okay, before we say something offensive, so today, this episode is going to, it's almost close to Valentine's.
Yes, it is.
It's almost close to Valentine's Day, and so I don't know if that's a time of the year where it's depressing for you, or because I know that it's a time of the year that it's depressing for people. And so, basically this is supposed to be our Valentine's Day episode.
Okay.
But because already we have talked about relationships, we've talked about the difficulties of being a Hopi, dating a Hopi on the reservation. We talked about the difficulties of being a Hopi, dating a different tribe, or even dating a different race on and off the reservation. And so I kind of wanted to take it up a little bit more and talk about what happens at the end of the road when you are fortunate enough to find somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and actually talk about Hopi weddings and Hopi marriages. But with this being our Valentine's Day episode, is there anything special that you got going on upcoming for Valentine's Day?
I don't even celebrate Valentine's Day.
No?
The only time that I did celebrate Valentine's Day was during the school. Remember when we were in grade school?
Yeah.
You put out your box of your Clean It box, because you decorated the day before, and then you just put your head down, and then they put in the little things that you buy at the store.
But you don't want to be weak, so you don't paint your hearts pink. You paint them blue or different colors.
No, it was because you buy those. Remember those little candygram thingies in a box that you just write, and then so would buy those at bashes, and then she would write down my classmates' names. Pretty much just go through the class list and just write down everyone. Even the boys would get one.
So did the whole thing for you, and you never lifted a finger to do anything.
No,
for your
and then the girls would get put in the little candygram things with the little hearts in there, and I don't know what happened to those. You just eat the candy and then just throw out the rest.
Or you get cards too.
You get little cards,
and then it's like Happy Valentine's Day.
With the Harry Potter Happy Valentine's Day cards, I Hagrid for you or something.
Those were the original DMs.
Yeah,
that was the DMs before the DMs were DMs, because then sometimes you'd have a little crush on somebody.
Oh yeah.
And so you do a little bit more for that person, sliding into their Valentine's Day box, sliding into the original DMs.
I guess that would be, but Valentine's Day for me, we never did anything for Valentine's Day. So and Kwa, since So and Kwa were brought up in the 1950s, every day was a romance for them. So Valentine's Day was just a showboat day.
Do you remember in high school when they'd have those? You would buy a rose. Or it was kind of something fancy because it cost like $5 or $10.
Yeah.
And then you would tell them who it was for, and you could either stay anonymous or you
write
could write your name on there, and then they would deliver it for you. And then so you would get these people coming into your class during the middle of class, looking for so-and-so. And then they're there and they get a flower, or they get whatever it is fancy that they're selling. And I always thought that was cool. Nobody ever bought me one.
You never got one before? I got two of them during my high school.
Really?
I didn't know who it was from because they were both anonymous.
Oh, no kidding.
I'm pretty sure it was some guys too that were
just trying to play
a prank on me. I think one year that's what some of my friends did, thinking that it was going to be from a girl. And that's what we used to do too. We used to prank our friends, hey, let's buy this for so-and-so. Let's just write somebody's name on there. I think that's what we used to do too. Because Valentine's Day wasn't in my radar, I didn't, because I never had somebody to love or somebody to fancy over.
You're I knew there was no Susan in our school.
And then so Valentine's Day is just a holiday that's just there, I guess.
And I aside from that, because I've bond the Res Famous wife and my daughters. I'll usually get them something.
Yeah.
And it's nothing too extravagant. It's not like a dozen roses, or it's just funny to me because I've never seen anybody go all out for Valentine's Day, or I don't even know what that means, going all out for Valentine's Day, because I've seen my dad buy my mother flowers once in a while, but I don't feel like it was a every year type of thing. And I buy my wife things here and there just to make so she doesn't feel left out, that Valentine's Day and there's all these commercials, all the TV shows are Valentine's Day themes. You go on Google, they have some sort of special Valentine's Day image on Google for that day, and so I'll do a little small something. But then I talk to friends. I have friends, and they'll ask me sometimes, what are you gonna do for your wife on Valentine's Day? It's I don't know, probably get her some flowers or somewhere. And what else are you gonna do? What do you mean? What else? That's pretty much it. You're not going to go take her to dinner. You're not going to go do this. You're not going to get her this special type of gift. Like, goddamn, like people out there are people out there that actually do that. Like go the whole nine and, to where like flowers aren't enough. We got to go to some fancy restaurant, get a hotel room for the night and find somebody to watch the kids. And
I think Valentine's Day was just made for the white people or people who think that they're white pretty much. And because I never thought that Hopi would be in that showboat kind of way too, because you'll see like on the roadside, you'll see every now and then that they're like cars that will set up their little makeshift stand, and they'll have like all these little holiday gifts on there. And it was like buy a candygram for your beloved and whatnot, and people will buy it, and like Hopis will buy it, but it's like like a Shasta Coke with the rose that's
or a crush
crush can, like something like that.
Do you? Because this is I think what those people sell, some of them, they sell pretty good things.
Oh yeah,
they get real creative, and like because I bought my daughter one time because she loves there's a certain type of candy bar that she really likes, and so I bought her a bouquet of the chocolate candies.
Yeah,
and I've always thought because it's sold on the side of the road, do people then think it's cheap stuff? Even though some of it's pretty good and pretty creative, you know what I mean? Like if you were to buy that stuff, like would you be proud to admit, oh, I bought my sweetheart something on the side of the road, as opposed to going to like a flower store or something?
No, I usually just say I made it myself. I'm this creative for you.
I'm this creative for you. But I guess, kind of moving on, and like I said, that as far as relationships goes, that we did talk about high school romances to a degree, and so I imagine that on Valentine's Day you're going to go to that shoebox that you have underneath your bed and pull out all the old letters,
old things
that you got from the high school girls that used to write to you. And then we also talked about dating, and to a degree having children. But I wanted to talk about when you go all the way to where you actually get married, or this concept of a Hopi wedding.
Yeah.
And because we do still get married in
the Hopi tradition
way, out here on Hopi. And I guess, kind of to talk about what that is, what that looks like, how often it happens, why it happens. And because I was married that way, that I can share what some of those experiences are, some things that I remember from my wedding. And then, kind of just use that as this basis to celebrate Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And so like to thinking about Hopi weddings, one of the things that I was thinking about is that, because I do know Hopi couples out there that are married, but they're not married in the Hopi way. That I do know a lot of people out there. Basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Hopi weddings, I would probably say, aren't as commonplace as they used to be. I mean, we do still have them, but it's probably like maybe 2 to 3 Hopi marriages would happen within a year.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a reason why they don't happen as often. I think one, because a lot goes into it. And in this day and age now, a lot of money goes into it.
A lot of money.
A lot of time goes into it. A lot of effort goes into it. And even just this concept of what it represents is that once you get married that way, so now and then you're tied together.
You're bonded for life.
Eternity.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that we've mentioned that concept that Hopi has, that we don't really believe in, what is it called when you separate when you're married?
Divorce.
Yeah. Divorce. That we don't really believe in divorce.
No.
Because even in today's society, you'll have people that were married, but were quote unquote divorced. I guess really the true term is separated.
Yeah.
But because they were married the Hopi way, that they know that at some point in time that they're going to have to get back with this person, usually in the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. Like all my moms out there who married first, got their ova and didn't like their husband, you're gonna go back to your husband sooner or later. So,
and it's kind of, and it becomes a joke, because that's the belief.
Yeah.
The belief is that even though you might separate in this world after being married,
Yeah.
in the Hopi way, that when you die, that when your spirit goes to the place that it's supposed to go to, you're going to join back to the person that you married. And so, all these jokes are made about people that are separated from their husbands or wives.
Yeah.
And that, if somebody ends up in a different relationship, it's like, oh, they're just keeping them warm for you. Because then, when you both die, that you guys are going to go back to being together. And so it just creates this different type of dynamic of what that represents. But I guess really, that's kind of the importance of a Hopi wedding, I guess. Because then, he said, I guess, a long time ago, that it was this belief, and we talked a little bit about it in our last few podcast episodes, talking about this idea of fulfillment of what a Hopi life is.
Yeah.
And we talked about, for the males, it's undergoing initiation into several societies. For women, it's other things. But for both men and women, what's the same is that it's getting married.
Yeah.
Because then he said that they believe that in order to go to Hopi heaven, I guess, that you had to get married.
You had to get married.
Because there was components that were intertwined with your marriage that the groom and the bride would receive, that would allow you to go on.
That, like your key, you're pretty much your
key.
Yeah,
your key card.
Your key card to get
your
into
PIN number.
Yeah, your key card to get to the afterlife.
And then for the ladies, it's the ova.
Yep.
Which is, I guess, the wedding robe.
The wedding robe.
The wedding robe.
Yep.
And then so that turns into, they turn into Aladdin or Jasmine from Aladdin. And it turns into a flying carpet. And then for the males, it's something they call a haupi. Or I get very large.
Or like a wicker plaque that's made out of
a very large yanyapa, I believe.
Yeah.
And then, that's how the males turn into aliens, because then they're riding flying saucers.
Pretty much.
Going
and then
down
that's their key to everlasting love.
Everlasting eternal love.
Eternal love and life, pretty much.
and so, I guess that's the reason as to why it's important, and that's why older people kind of, if they get the opportunity to push their children through a Hopi wedding, that they want to do it, that they're willing to do it, because it's this deep belief that that's how you're going to get to the afterlife. You need to go.
It's that belief that we want to be together again. So it's that belief that we must have these things in order for us to cross over.
So people like me that did get married, we're going to make a fortune when we're charging other folks that didn't get married in this life tickets for passage to get to the great beyond.
I know some people. So.
I'm connected.
I'm connected in different ways.
I have no worries.
I have the backstage pass. Bought it a long time ago. Scalped.
But I guess in the 2022, or even when we did get married, it's such an interesting thing, because then I think that we're so. I mean, this is, I guess, really kind of just outside of Hopi. And thinking about generally as far as being native in Indian country, is that, I think that a lot of these traditional marriages must not exist in other tribes. Yeah. That, I think that it's probably a rarity that a tribe still carries on their traditional marriage. Yeah. Because then I remember when it was decided that we were going to get married.
And
here
so it comes.
And so we're going to get married, and we started telling people, we're going to get married. Yeah. And then even telling our non-Hopi friends that might have still been native. Yeah. In their mind, they're thinking a church. Yeah. In their mind, they're thinking a white gown. Yeah. And
flower
girls, groomsmen, bridesmaids.
The whole works.
The whole nine.
Yeah.
And no, we're getting married in the traditional way, in the Hopi way. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. That's such a cool thing. But I guess, because in this day and age, our minds generally, I guess, just outside of Hopi, generally, our minds are so fixated on what a wedding is and how that goes. And then even when I tell a person that, oh no, we're getting married the traditional way, then they always ask me, "Oh, how did you propose? Where did you propose?" And I'm like, "Didn't you hear me? I just said we're getting married the Hopi way." The man doesn't propose in the Hopi way. Rather, it's the lady.
It's the lady that kind of
to a degree.
Yeah, in a way, to the degree that brings her Nova over to
her horse.
Brings her Nova to the boy's house, and then the boy will accept it
or not accept it.
Or
rather his mother.
So actually, like if you read some of the books, like the Hopi books, it tells you about like the Hopi wedding. So in one of the books, it says that the taha or the uncle would be like the go-between where the bride and the groom, or like the person, like the girl and the boy, and they will talk to both sides of the parents and say that, okay, this is what's going to happen. So the girl will prepare her traditional food and then take it to the boy, and then the uncle will step in front of the boy and then talk to the girl and saying that, okay, do you want to still do this? Pretty much like, are you sure about this thing here?
This guy's a lazy ass.
Yeah, and then they will talk to the boy and say that this is a huge responsibility that you're going to take on here. And then after that, once they both agree, then the girl will take her Nova to the door, and then the boy will stay in his house and then accept it. And if he accepts it, then it's a marriage. Then it's on. It's the marriage proposal. Can't back out of it.
You're stuck.
The only way to back out of a Hopi marriage is to take her Nova back to the house. That's pretty, yeah. and that creates a huge animosity between the families and clans.
But it's interesting because I hear all this information from my wife.
Yeah.
But there are people that have done that have gone to take their food over the proposal, I guess, and then it's been accepted, and then they break up, and then they never which I guess is the term that's used traditionally. And so like, they took their food over, but then they broke up.
Yeah.
So they never is usually what you'll hear. And so, unfortunately, I guess in this day and age, that's kind of the twist or the side kickers that, even though you go through these customary steps to undergo the process of getting the marriage started, that there's still ways out of it. Outside of just not taking the food back to the lady's house.
So before we move on, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break for our paid sponsors here.
So would you feel ashamed if somebody brought food to you and you accepted it, but then you broke up and then didn't go through with it?
Probably. I mean, it's if that tradition, because there is still that tradition that still revolves around that, and I would feel really guilty about that because I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt her and her family.
And I guess, to kind of put some context into it, because from what I understand, I was born in 1985.
Yeah.
That I never saw Hopi life in the Hisat time, which I like to reference a lot. But what I've been told is that, at least for a third Mesa wedding, that when it comes to bringing the food over, that traditionally it wasn't a huge ordeal.
No.
Like it'd just be the girl and the mother sometimes.
Yeah.
In some instances, very small thing. But in possibly, in the other mesas, that it was a little bit a bigger event.
It's a little bit bigger event.
It's a bigger event. And so, but in my experience, that when the Red's famous wife brought her food over, that there was a big parade. A lot of people from her family wanting to help, and a lot of food came with her.
Yeah.
And so I guess really to understand what goes into the proposal, a lot goes into the proposal. A lot of food, a lot of food, a lot of coordination of it. And then, making the horse, I guess, which is the lemi, or big, large size of it, which requires a lot of bosi, which is, roasted sweet corn. And so a lot of resources go into the proposal. And it was kind of funny because on my proposal day, that all of my son and Snake Clan kias, they kind of created a barricade, and you had some of my kias that were living out here in Oraivi that they were hanging up signs down here at the bridge below Hotbella, and saying some unkindly things about my wife.
Your future
wife at the time. And so, it was kind of this big old event. And so, and that's kind of more common now, to where when somebody goes take food, quote unquote, take food is usually what the term is that it's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. It involves a lot of people. And so when I guess, talking about JMan's big day, talking about the wedding and talking a little bit about what goes into it, that it's a 4-day, officially it's kind of a 4-day thing.
Yeah.
But it could go longer depending on how it's arranged, because traditionally that, you think about the white man's wedding, that, the gown's a big important thing.
Oh yeah.
Of the white man's wedding. And in Hopi way, I guess it's kind of almost similar, but not really a gown, but the wedding outfit.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the Hopi wedding, traditionally, the wedding outfit is constructed while the wedding is going on.
Yeah.
And when it's done that way, that may extend the length of the metwi, quote unquote metwi, staying at the groom's house.
At the groom's house, yep.
And feeding everybody, proving her metwi skills. Basically,
her womanly skills that she can.
Her womanly skills.
Yeah.
And so I remember that you're going to get married. You're going to get married. And, it's scary. It's a scary thing, because then like that, I think really when you're going to get married in the Hopi way, that you understand that a lot of people are going to go out of their way to provide things to make the wedding happen.
It takes a village to...
It takes...
Yeah.
And in some cases, multiple villages.
Multiple villages to make a
wedding.
Yeah.
And so I think that, just this pressure, the fact that not only are your own parents footing the bill for certain things, material for the wedding outfit, talking to other families in the village, asking, can we use some of the things that you have, your dumtsoki, your biki making house? Can we use your
home? It's like your home
to feed people. And then even go so far as coordinating with the village. We need things for all the people that are going to come when this wedding happens. Toilet arrangements and other types of arrangements. And knowing that my bride-to-be was going through the same thing, coordinating with her own clan on getting corn that they needed to make sakwap ngamni.
Yeah.
Coordinating with her clan to get the bahan ngamni and all these other types of necessities needed, pastries, things like that for the wedding to happen. Because I guess a Hopi wedding is different from a white man's wedding, but there are some comparable things.
Yeah, aspects of it, yeah.
Because if you're to get married in the white man's way, then all of the finances, all of the coordination, I believe traditionally they say it's like the groom's family or something. It just falls to one side of the family, and that they make those arrangements. But I guess in this day and age, if you're to get married the white man way, you're just calling the place and say, we're going to get married here. Here's the deposit. And then the place that you call, they're the ones setting up the decorations.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are dealing with the chairs and the tables and, making sure that you're getting what you paid for. But the Hopi way is that you're doing that all on your own. And one of the things too that we talked about when I was getting married, because then you talk about the cost of a white man's wedding, right?
Oh yeah.
That it can be pretty expensive if you're not going the church route and you're getting married at a resort or something, or at a hotel. There's a cost to have it there. And if you're going to have a reception, there's a cost for the food. And that's why if you ever get married to a wedding, they ask you to RSVP by a certain time, because then they got to let the caterers know of how many people are going to be there. And then there's a cost in that. And then when I was having my wedding, I was having a conversation with some relatives, and we were talking about that, the difference between a white man's and a Hopi wedding. And then we started to really think about it. And you're like, you know what? A Hopi wedding financially is so much more costly than a white
traditional Christian wedding. Yeah.
Because then you think about some of the things that are involved. Sheep is needed at a Hopi wedding. That's provided by the groom's family, which is kind of used in a way as payment, but it's also used for food for the people that are going to be there as the wedding. I believe that we had somewhere around 60 sheep for our wedding.
Yeah.
and you think about what the cost of a sheep head is today, $200 to $300.
$200.
$200 to $300 per sheep, $200 to $300 times 60, which is just one aspect of the Hopi wedding. And then I mentioned what is provided by the bride's family, that sometimes you have families as far as the Bahandimni goes, that they'll buy a whole, what do they call those? The things that the pallets.
The pallets, yeah.
They'll buy a whole pallets of those.
Of the bluebird flower, yeah.
And then that's in the thousands. And you just calculated what 60 times $200 to $300, or is that $12,000?
$12,000 just for
the sheep.
And that's not including
That's not including hay.
Yeah, it's not including hay to feed. Yeah.
And then, there's no hotel I can call, and here's the deposit to get the pen ready for the sheep and the corral. And so we had to go down there and do that ourselves. Clear out the area where we were going to keep the sheep, put up the fencing to keep the sheep in.
Yeah.
And then, setting up the barbed wire, because a lot of dogs around the village.
So how much would you say, just on the top of your head, if we knew that number was 12,000? And including like the pallets of ngumni that will be, because it's like $10 per sack there, and it's like hundreds and hundreds of bluebird flower sack, and not including like the baker's little thing there.
Or not counting the corn.
The corn
that sometimes you have to buy. And that was something too that I thought about, is that even though we're in a drought, that when you still have these things, these weddings or tikivas, that our expectation of how much corn should be provided doesn't change, even though we're in a drought.
Yeah, exactly. I would probably calculate it probably around $50,000 to $60,000.
I was gonna say at least $20,000.
No, I think at least $50,000 to $60,000. That includes like renting porta potties. That includes like all the water that you have to haul.
And then one of the most expensive components too is the deer skin.
Oh yeah,
which is used to make the shoes.
Yeah,
the shoes for the bride.
Yeah,
and depending if the bride has children, which my wife did, 4 of them, then you're buying additional material for the kids.
Exactly. And I would say around $50,000 to $60,000 over the course, and we don't think about that.
And I guess in terms of what the good thing about this idea of there's this term that's thrown out a lot out here on Hopi, our organizations like to use it, but it's sumit nangwa.
Yeah.
And what that means is that coming together.
Yeah.
For the benefit of good. And that's kind of one of the real positive things you see out of a Hopi wedding, is that this number that Carl just threw out, as far as what all the costs go into it, is that you're not really paying that out of your own pocket. You have relatives and friends from far and wide. They know that this wedding is going on, and so they'll take it out of their own good hearts to go buy the groceries.
Oh yeah,
for the mewi.
Yeah.
Or they'll take it out of their heart to go buy the shawls or the aprons that are gifted to the mewi and her kids, or they'll take it out of their own good hearts to go buy a sheep to provide for the male side, or even the firewood.
Yeah,
that's needed.
Firewood is expensive. Yeah.
Biggest firewood pile you'll ever see in your life is at a Hopi wedding.
Exactly, and you'll see men just chopping wood all day long.
What's that wood used for?
That's used for like the nukwivi, and then for like if the girl is making piki, then that will be used for that. All sorts of different things that will benefit from that. Yeah, pikami and everything in that whole thing, and it's a grand event that you'll ever see in your life. And I've been to a lot of weddings. I've been to a lot of that, and on my family side.
And I was about to say, because I don't think there's probably a good way. An hour is probably not long enough for you and I to really describe what it is, or to describe what it looks like, describe everything that goes on. But, thanks to my corn water relatives in Hotvela, there's a pretty good article in the Arizona Republic or like what we've been saying, that it is documented out there.
Oh yeah, it is documented
in some of the Hopi books as to what goes into a Hopi wedding. But I guess really the real basis of what a Hopi wedding basically is that when a woman wants to marry a man, she goes to the groom's mother's house, and has to prove herself, and so she grinds corn for 4 days straight, basically, to prove that she's worthy enough to be a wife to the mother's
her son. Yeah, the mother's son. Yeah.
But when the wedding is over, and when the bride is taken back to her home, because we've said this multiple times, that Hopi is a matrilineal society. And so the bride is taken back to her own home with her own people, with her now new husband in tow, with his appa, because now he belongs to
them now,
his wife's clan.
Yeah.
And then so he waves mama goodbye and cries one last time because life's gonna be hard now.
Life is gonna be different. No more Xbox.
No more Xbox. You gotta chop wood for your wife's family and hunt for your wife's family and plant for your wife's family. Well, I guess as far as my experience goes, because it's interesting because, like you said, that it's a big event.
Oh yeah, it is.
So many people come.
Oh yeah,
we got married pre-pandemic, so there was no barriers or issues that came along, that was brought along with the pandemic. And so I truly believe that there were people from every single village out here, because I don't call my wife the Rez Famous wife for nothing. A lot of people know her. And so when I married her, I basically married Hopi. I married the Hopi reservation. And so lots of people came, and because you're kind of as the man, the wedding is basically about the woman.
Oh yeah,
everything that happens is going to happen.
Is all for her. Yeah.
But being the male, being the groom, you're kind of like the gopher.
Yeah.
And so when something needs to be set up, you're
the one.
They're calling you to go set it up.
You're basically like the go-to guy kind of thing.
You're kind of the bitch boy.
Yeah, you're basically that.
But because so many people come, because so many people contribute, that you're expected to express your gratitude all the time. And so basically what my experience was the entire time was running every single direction as fast as I could and just saying "quack quack" all along the way. And you're walking past people you don't even know, "quack quack, quack quack." You're seeing little kids playing on the street, "quack quack, quack quack." You're seeing dogs humping each other in the village, "quack quack, quack quack." You're so used to just saying "quack quack" all the time.
Exactly.
And it's from what I remember from my wedding was, and I tell the Rez Famous wife this all the time, is that it went by so fast, and because I was being demanded everywhere, that I don't even remember everything that happened. Or even in the order that it happened. That basically in my eyes I saw the whole thing progress and fast forward. And then it was over. And then it was over real quick. But I guess, at least as far as my experience goes, going through it, like, I'm so appreciative. I am so appreciative that my parents were willing to do it for me. I'm so appreciative of my wife's family and their willingness to do it for us. And that everybody that was involved, because, unfortunately, I did mention this at the beginning, that not everybody gets married this way, even though they're two Hopis in a relationship. And sometimes, and I've heard this, that it doesn't happen because no one's willing to help me do it.
Exactly.
Or my parents aren't willing to do this for us, or I don't have the money to make it happen, because $60,000 is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And so, there is that unfortunate reason as to why it doesn't happen for some people, is that the people aren't willing to make it happen for them. And, I hope to make it happen for my kids at some point in time, if they decide to be with Hopis and decide to marry Hopis. And just knowing that my family was willing to do it for me. And so it's an interesting thing, because, I did talk about that there are some commonalities between a Hopi wedding and a white man's wedding. Because I have a lot of Bahana friends, or indigenous friends. And, my wife and I, after we got married in our Hopi way, we went and we rented out a spot down in the valley, down in Phoenix, and we kind of had a reception, a reception for our non-Hopi friends, because we told a lot of people that we were getting married.
Yeah,
We were very weary of inviting people to it because they're not Hopi. Because they're not Hopi.
Yeah,
and because it's your wedding, you can't hold people's hands and tell them what's going on. You can't sit with them and make sure that they're comfortable. You can't do any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we didn't invite anybody that wasn't Hopi
from the outside. Yeah.
Unless we were comfortable knowing that they were going to be comfortable and taken care. So like real close family friends, like friends that, maybe my parents knew or her siblings knew or something to that extent.
Well, Hopi weddings on the whole thing. Yes, it is a grand thing. It is something that all Hopi males and females want to go through because it guarantees them afterlife kind of stuff. Privileges.
And the platinum.
But I guess nowadays, we don't do that. We don't think like that anymore. We're very, very ostracized our whole culture, that we just kind of deal with like the Bahana side because it's quicker, it's easier, and we can get it done.
And when I die, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and when we die, we'll figure it out.
I'll pay JMan's admission price to get on his Hopi.
Exactly, and it looks like we're almost out of time. So if you have one more thing.
Yeah, I have one more thing I wanted to share before we go. And speaking to that, to the commonalities.
All right.
Because we told a lot of our friends that weren't Hopi that we were getting married. And then after we got married, we thought that, let's invite them to like a reception.
Yeah.
And we'll put a PowerPoint together and kind of just tell them what we went through.
Yeah.
And so we did that. But I had a lot of individual conversations with a lot of folks about this, about our wedding, my wife's wedding, I don't know, about our wedding. And then, and the way that I try to get somebody to understand is that to compare it to something that they might know. And so a lot of people know what a Bahana wedding is.
Oh, yeah.
Understands what that is. And then so, comparing the importance of the bridal gown to the importance of the me'ui's clothes, the ova, her totis, everything that comes with it. And then the other thing too that I would tell them that, it's interesting that, because an important part of the white man's wedding is when the bride walks down the aisle. For some reason, that's like a big part of that type of wedding. Everybody stands up. You see how beautiful the bride is.
Yeah.
Her beautiful dress. She walks down the aisle to go get married. But if you were to find a commonality with that in the Hopi wedding, that the bride and her walking down the aisle actually happens after the wedding is complete. During the summertime, during the mantikive. And that's what I would share with folks, is that the equivalent to the bride walking down the aisle actually happens at the home dance when she does her ova'usita. Because at that time, then she's fully dressed in her wedding clothes. And she's, in a way, walking down the aisle, into the gates.
She's being presented
presented as a married woman.
Yeah.
And the audience is itakwatsume, katina.
Yeah.
And they see her, and then they recognize and acknowledge that she completed a big part
of that life there.
Of this life of what we're supposed to complete. And so, and I do have one number on here, and it says, will Carl ever find a wife? And so, I guess, Carl will be the one to tell us that and what it's like to be a single Hopi in the 2022 years, but that might end up being a whole episode.
It probably end up, because I don't know. I guess when you marry, you want to love that person, dearly. And I guess I just don't have that inside of me, just that because I have a different life, my life is, it wasn't on track. So my life kind of stayed in one type of track, not going to another station. But other than that, I mean, it might happen. And I'm saying this with quotation marks around the might being.
And I just want to be clear on something. There's nothing relations to you. I do love my wife.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be married to my wife and just want to wish her a happy Valentine's Day. And I actually did want to ask you this question though before we go, is that do you think it's different being single and Hopi today versus back to when we were in high school being single and Hopi in the 2000s?
Oh yeah,
2000s?
it is. It is. It's very, very.
What makes it different?
Because a lot of the girls, if you try to text them like, hey, or like, what's up, they'll call you creeper no matter what. Like back in our day, like, when we said hey to a girl, man, those girls would like jump on that because it's acknowledging them. It's like, how did you finally notice me? It's like that whole thing. And like there was a story that was like from We Gotta Talk Damn It podcast, and he was telling this really quickly. So he was telling this like back in his day. He went to a disco and he's like, I want to know who that girl is. Yeah. He's a very old guy. So he said like, I want to know who that girl is. So he goes to the DJ and then he says like, hey, I want that girl's phone number. Guy gives her the phone number and he's like, I'll call her up. So he calls her up and the girl was like, man, you went all that trouble just to find me. And I'm so impressed with that. If you do that now in the 21st century, you'll be called a creep. You'll be called a stalker. You won't even last 1 minute. You'll be canceled.
You'll get blasted.
You'll get blasted on social media.
Don't let this guy talk to you.
Yeah.
But I guess, the difference might be that back then, you were 16 years old and now you're mid-30 something.
So, but that's for a different story. So if you got this far into our podcast,
Carl, congratulate you.
I congratulate you for getting this far into there. So if you want to donate something, go to anchor.fm/CJ podcast 85 to donate something. It's only $1.99 or $4.99, whichever your flavor is. Or if you want to just donate $1 or more, go to buymeacoffee.com/CJ podcast to donate $1 or more.
And if you're not following us on our social medias, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Carl and JMan. If you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I promise that Carl and I will be coming with some new material for our YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to hit that don't forget to give us a 5-star review.
Yeah.
Because you're not 5-star unless you're YouTube, Apple Podcasts, says that you're 5-star. And I guess that's it. Nothing else to instruct listeners to, but thank you for
listening.
Thank you for doing all that for us.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to Carl and JMan Save the World podcast. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, JMan.
So long. Qua qua.